Welcome to the Thrive podcast with the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church.
How does your faith kind of play into it, or does it play into it?
What can be done about it? When I say the church, I'm talking about evangelical white Christians and the black folk who attend their churches.
Hello, welcome to the Thrive podcast with the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church. I'm Fred Jeff Smith, pastor of Shiloh, and I'm very happy that you're either viewing this on YouTube or you are listening to this on iTunes, Spotify, or Amazon Prime. We always want to hear from you with regard to the podcast, how we're doing. You can reach me at fredjeffsmith@cox.net, Fred Jeff Smith at cox.net. Let us know how we're doing and what we can do to make this podcast more beneficial to you. I am very happy today to welcome to the podcast Mrs. Natalie Tellis Robertson, who is running for judge for family court here in the Baton Rouge area. Mrs. Robertson, thank you so much for taking the time to come and share with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Give me an idea of who you are. We were talking about your dad a minute ago.
Yes.
Tell me who you are.
Okay, so like you said, I'm Natalie Tellis Robertson. My dad is Claude Tellis.
Yes.
I'm from the Tellis family. Obviously, my grandparents settled here in Baton Rouge in 1944 to teach on Southern's campus and to live on Southern's campus. And so my dad grew up partially on Southern's campus and then moved off campus to a home in Scotlandville and graduated from Southern University Lab School. My dad left Baton Rouge to go to Michigan State and met my mom in the process. And when he finished, he came back to Louisiana for medical school at LSU, and then was enlisted in the Army, so took a job with Walter Reed Army Medical Center, which is right around the time I was born. And so I grew up in D.C. Until I was 18 years old and went to Howard University. And my parents moved back to Baton Rouge when I was at Howard, and I followed them. So I followed them and was enrolled in Southern University Law Center and became an attorney here in Baton Rouge. And I've been here, went to New Orleans for 5 years to practice family law and came back. And so I have a long history, long roots and attachments to Baton Rouge, and a long history practicing in the family law realm.
So you went to Egypt and then came back to
I
the
did,
Promised
yes.
Well,
yes.
I'm glad you came back to the Promised.
I am too. It's Southern University Law Center was very welcoming, very nurturing, a great place to be trained as an attorney.
Yes, ma'am. My background is that I was born and raised here, went down there to go to seminary, spent 9 years down there, 3 years in school, 6 years pastoring a church. I always call New Orleans Egypt.
Okay.
And when I get back to Baton Rouge, I say this is the Promised Land. Yes. So you were born in Washington, D.C.
I was at Walter Reed.
So what distinctions do you see as someone who was raised in D.C. and now lives in Baton Rouge? What is the greatest distinction that you see between D.C. life and Baton Rouge life?
Mostly, Washington, D.C. has a lot of things to offer in terms of things to do, and a lot of things to offer in terms of diversity and different businesses and different restaurants and just a lot of culture, a lot of multiculturalism in Washington, D.C. And so, not that Baton Rouge doesn't have that, but it's just something that I really noticed when I moved from Washington, D.C. to Baton Rouge. It was just smaller, a little slower, a little friendlier, more welcoming. Diverse in that, that there is diversity in Louisiana's history in terms of, who settled here and how Africans mixed with French and things of that nature, the Italians, Nova Scotians, people like that. But in D.C., there are, several different nationalities, several different ethnicities. I had a lot of Jewish influence in my life. a lot of Jewish people that I went to school with. And so the thing that I noticed most when I moved here was not the lack of, but just not as the population, the Jewish population wasn't as big. The Asian American population at the time didn't seem as big. And so I sort of missed that when I first moved over here, just not being exposed to all those different, minorities.
What is it that drew you to law?
Well, as I was growing up in school, I sort of was best at English and speaking and writing. And my grandfather, who lived here in Baton Rouge, just always thought that, that the way that I would debate with him would make me a good lawyer, and the way that I could speak and communicate and express myself. So he thought that would make me a good lawyer, and that was just kind of always in my head that I would go to law school. So you weren't
one of those kids who was told to just go sit in the corner and be quiet?
No.
You were allowed to speak?
Yeah, I was allowed to speak, and my dad said that, that I was something else. I would stand up for my brother. When my grandfather and I would talk, and we were very close, and but we would spar a little bit, and so but I think he liked that debate, and so he encouraged that. He encouraged me to go to law school, and his wish really was for me to take law at Southern.
Okay. How did you gravitate towards family law? There are all different types of law.
Right.
What drew your attention to family law in particular?
Well, so I started out, thinking that I might want to do entertainment law, just because I think probably it just looked sparkly, and I thought I could go to New York or Los Angeles and interact with celebrities and work on contracts and things of that nature. But it turned out to be a little different when I got out of law school. I took a job that was available to me, and that first job was in Opelousas, Louisiana, clerking for Judge Alonzo Harris.
Okay.
And so I was exposed to criminal law and family law and some civil personal injury cases. But while I was there, or it may have been shortly after I got back to Baton Rouge, and I clerked for Judge Guidry for a little while. Judge Laverne.
John Michael Guidry.
John Michael Guidry, yes. I clerked for John Michael Guidry for a little while, and while I was there, Judge Laverne called me and said he had a vacancy. Luke Laverne, okay. Yes. And so he was a family court judge.
Yes.
And for people who don't know, the legislature created a family court, just so that family court issues could be heard. And then I believe it was in 1990 that there was some redistricting going on, and some lines were drawn so that a minority judge could be elected in family court. And Judge Laverne was the first minority judge to be elected to the family court bench.
Yes. And
so, and if I'm not mistaken, I was the first law clerk. So I was the first black law clerk in family court. And Judge Laverne and I it was good that I had him as a mentor, because he really trained me and showed me, how I had to pay attention to the law and how I would be able to apply the law to the facts. He really humanized it for me, as did Judge Lisa Woodruff White. And my journey really began, working with Judge Laverne. And then, once I clerked for him for a year, I said, well, this is what I understand. This is what I know. I like it. I like interacting with people. I like the stories. And when I started looking for a job, I started looking for a family law firm that I could go to. There was nothing available in Baton Rouge, but there was an availability in New Orleans. And so that's how I landed in New Orleans for 5 years, working in the area.
Judge Laverne's son, Lance, and I were classmates at Baton Rouge High School. Long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But I have a great fondness for Judge Laverne.
Judge Luke Laverne.
For the uninitiated, help explain what family law is. Most people, I think that family law is only about divorces and things of that sort. Could you give us a better understanding of what family law involves and
so
entails?
Family law does start with divorce. I've learned on the campaign trail that a lot of people confuse family court with juvenile court. They think that I'm just, or that if you are an attorney working in family court, you're just working with children. But that's that's more the realm of juvenile court. So family law starts with a divorce, and we call them ancillary matters that come along with the divorce. And those ancillary matters are custody, child support, interim spousal support, and permanent spousal support. And then also, once you get past those issues, there are community property issues, and that's just basically the division of property between people who are formerly married. Also in family court, we deal with domestic violence issues. I don't know if a lot of people know that. When they go to the Battered Women's Program to apply for petition for protection from domestic abuse, they may think that it's criminal in nature, and the criminal court does, hear those types of cases. But when it's a dispute between a former dating partner or a husband and a wife, it's normally heard in family court.
Does your responsibility as a family court attorney raise conflicts with you and your personal ethics with regard to some of the issues that you see? Domestic violence, child abuse, things of that sort. My sister's an attorney. Sometimes we go back and forth about that issue. How do you handle the ethical dilemmas that might arise from your professional responsibilities as a family court lawyer?
Well, if I'm thinking about domestic violence, it's difficult if you are representing somebody or you're defending somebody who seems to have actually perpetrated the offense that he's being accused of. And so the way that I reconcile it is I become a little bit of a counselor, and I look for ways to have that client find ways to help him or herself. And being in Judge Woodruff White's courtroom, it's even easier to tap into those resources because we're looking for anger management courses. We're looking for counseling for those people. We are looking for parenting classes for those people if they're abusing spouses and children. And so I think what I try to do is to take each client as they come, and I try to look at their circumstances and what brought them to the particular place, because there's always something in someone's background if they're doing something like abusing another person, where they probably have been victims of abuse themselves. And the only way to address that is to look at what they've suffered and try to see if we can cure that. And so that's sort of how I reconcile that. I don't practice myself, and I don't advocate trying to get someone off who has a problem with that. I advocate, looking at what the problem is and seeing how it can be addressed. Because ultimately, if there's a father or a mother who is abusing children or is abusing a spouse, they're still a family. And when children are involved, the children still love their parents, whether they're abusers or not. And so you want to try to find a way to keep the family together and keep everybody healthy, and try to eliminate or mitigate bad circumstances.
When you find yourself in a situation, I know you're not a judge yet, when you find yourself in a situation as a representative of a party in these kinds of cases, if a judge is led to recommend counseling, does the court system provide the monies necessary to receive the counseling? One of the dilemmas I have, getting into my prickly points now, one of the dilemmas I have is that often in criminal cases, the district attorney refers people to alternative sentencing, counseling programs, anger management programs, things of that sort. But the success rate is not what it could be because people can't avail themselves of the services because they don't have the money
I understand.
to do that. And so taking that experience and translating it into a family court situation, if a judge says you need to go to anger management, does the court then provide counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists at a reduced charge or at no charge so that the person can actually take advantage of those services?
So what we try to do, because I have worked behind the scenes as a research attorney, like I said, for Judge Woodruff White and for Judge Luke Laverne, what we try to do is we try to look at the incomes of people who come, before the court and pinpoint mental health professionals that will help people on what we call a sliding scale. And so they'll look at what their income is and try to provide the services at a price that they can afford. Now, the court itself does not provide the services, but we definitely try to partner with people in the community, look into resources for people who otherwise would not be able to afford mental health counseling or mental health assistance.
In those cases, counseling usually takes a little while before there's any real success that comes from it. You don't go twice and all of a sudden everything is fine.
Right.
So what's the time frame generally for those types of things?
So it really depends. It really depends on the severity of, what the problem is. There is a place, and as you were saying that, I was remembering a place called Family Services of Greater Baton Rouge. And I'm not sure if they offer free services. I think they also may offer services on a sliding scale. But they have programs put in place whereby once you identify what the problem is, they have a timeline for, how long it should take to address the problem acutely, and then what kind of program you can transition into in order to get long-term care.
Let's turn the page a little bit.
Okay.
You guys, family court, when I say you guys, family court handles property successions?
It does.
In case of a death?
Well, no, so not successions.
Okay.
Civil district court handles successions.
Okay.
We handle community property partitions. For example, husband and wife marry and they purchase a home, they purchase cars, they purchase furniture. And so those things have to be divided when a divorce happens. And so that's what we handle. We try to help people divide assets equally.
Is it a formula that you all employ, or is it a case-by-case situation?
So we look to equalize. And so, for example, if there is furniture valued at a certain amount, and then there may be some other personal assets valued at a certain amount, we try to make sure that husband gets, he may want the watches or, I don't know, some appliances, and then wife may want a bed or a kitchen set. And so we look at those values and we try to say, like, okay, this kitchen set may cost $100 and these appliances may cost $100. And so we try to balance it and equalize to make sure that when they come out of the partition that everybody's sort of getting an equalizing share.
Why is it that women don't pursue child support in the court system, avail themselves to the court system appropriately to receive child support when they separate from their spouses and or significant others?
So normally,
my experience is that they don't do it.
They don't do it. Okay.
They don't do it, and they usually come up with this thing about, well, if I do that, then he won't spend any time with Johnny or Jane because he thinks I'm forcing him to do something that he doesn't want to do.
Right.
Is that just my experience? Because I have them coming in here quite a lot with that experience.
Really? Okay.
Is that something that you see in the courtroom on your side of
So
it?
I don't see that a whole lot, especially if it were people who were formerly married, because, like I said, when we file a petition for divorce, we file the ancillary matters, connected with the petition for divorce, and one of those things would be child support. Now, sometimes, you kind of take it on a case-by-case basis, and it depends on the relationship of the parties. They may work something out whereby, like what you're saying, mom feels like dad might not spend as much time with the children if he feels like he's being placed on child support. A lot of men I have found, especially in non-support court, where those are normally state cases, or they don't like to be placed on child support. They feel as though I will do for my child, I'll buy things for my child if requested, but I don't want to be forced to pay child support. So I think or feel like a lot of those situations would be situations where they were unmarried parties, and mom applies for child support through the state, and she gives up on pursuing it because her chief concern is to have dad be more physically involved with the children. And then what I noticed is it's just frustrating. If you're a mom trying to pursue child support through the state, sometimes payees change residences, they change jobs to avoid paying child support, and I find that there are some people who get discouraged with trying to chase a payee around.
But they're owed something.
They are
and
owed
their
something.
children are owed something.
They are. I agree.
And the mother in this case, and I'm not trying to be sexist, but usually it's mothers who are complaining that fathers are not paying child support.
Right.
The mother, in my opinion, has to be an advocate not for herself,
For her
but
child.
for the child,
Right.
and or children.
Correct.
And children are suffering because this person has decided that I'm not going to pay what the court has said I need to pay. Now, in response to that, what is it that a prospective judge would do? How would a judge respond? If John Doe is brought before the court and John Doe is 8 months behind in child support, what is it that, what alternatives does the judge have in a family court situation to respond to that situation?
So the thing that we have in place to try to enforce child support is contempt. And so that's the tool the judge has. But truly, it's frustrating. I can understand, because the judge only has so much authority, and it has to follow the rules, and the rules are that people deserve notice and an opportunity to be heard. And so when someone owes child support, or when there's a situation where child support needs to be set, the judge has to look to see if, once the pleadings are drafted and filed, that those pleadings that are requesting child support are actually served properly by law enforcement in order for that person to appear in court. And so once that person appears in court and that amount is set, then there's another court date most probably set for review to make sure that, dad is paying the child support that he was ordered to pay. Some people don't show up. And if dad was served to be there and he doesn't show up, then the judge can issue a bench warrant. But just because a bench warrant is issued doesn't mean dad is picked up right away. Usually something has to happen, like, dad is stopped by the police for a broken taillight, and they run his license and they find out that there's a warrant out for his arrest for non-payment of child support, and then he's arrested, put in jail, and he will have what's called a child support hold on him and will not be able to be released until a new court date is set or a certain amount of child support is paid.
So you have to go through this procedural
Correct.
thing.
Correct.
And quite often at the end of and I'm not complaining. I'm just venting.
No,
since
I mean,
we're
I
talking about family
understand.
law.
I can understand from the outside looking in that
Well, on the other end of this
yeah.
is if he's in jail, he's going to lose his job.
Correct.
And
Correct.
if he loses his job,
Correct.
he's not going to be able to pay anyway.
Right, and so the judges, I would say all four of the judges, because there are 4 judges in the family court here in Baton Rouge, they realize that. They recognize that, and they try to look at what his work schedule is, or ask, how would me putting you in jail during these times, affect your ability to work. And so judges do try to work around that. If dad doesn't work on weekends, then we'll try to put him in jail on weekends. The alternative, and what Judge Woodruff White does a lot, is litter detail. And so, instead of, being placed in jail so that dad can be out to be able to go to work, he's ordered to perform a certain amount of community service, and can't be released from that until he's fulfilled that obligation.
Okay. You, in addition to your pursuit of the law, you're a mother.
I am.
You're a wife. You are active in this community. You work with Jack and Jill.
I do.
You are an AKA. My wife is an AKA.
Okay.
Is it gratifying to you to have the opportunity to serve the community in these other ways, in addition to serving the community through your professional practice? It
absolutely is. And I guess I should first say that I always think of my profession as a service. There are a great many people that I help. And on the days where, the money is low, or my tolerance is low, where it gets frustrating, I have to remember all the people who call back after the cases have finished and just say, thank you. There are a lot of people that I run across that really feel like I am there for them in one of the toughest times of their lives. And I find that to be a community service in itself. I also find reducing my fees or doing pro bono work or working through my LLC affordable divorces to reduce the amount that I charge to be a community service, because it helps a great many people who really need help. In a realm that a lot of lawyers don't like. A lot of lawyers shy away from family law because it is emotional and frustrating, and the cases last a long time, especially if children are involved. Now, you asked about Jack and Jill, so through Jack and Jill, we realized that our children are given a lot, are very fortunate, and we have community service arms in Jack and Jill where we have the ability to help other children. And so we provide services like Breakfast with Santa every year, which is our Baton Rouge chapter Jack and Jill signature event, where children who otherwise would not be able to have, a happy Christmas can come and enjoy Santa Claus and gifts and a hot breakfast and just be loved by people who care. And so I find that to be extremely gratifying. I love being a mother. I love the look of my daughter's face when, she comes down on Christmas morning. It's her favorite holiday. And so I get a lot of fulfillment in being able to give back to children who otherwise would not be able to enjoy the things that my child can enjoy because I do have a job that helps me provide for her. I also work through the links, and as I'm talking to you, I'm seeing that there's a sort of a pattern in my community service, because in the links I also worked with services to youth. At Buchanan Elementary with the Rosebuds Club. And the Rosebuds Club was for young girls to learn etiquette and to be exposed to women who were professionals, so they could ask questions and want, to sort of model after us, and to talk about careers and just have a club where they felt like they belonged somewhere and they felt like there was something that they could reach for. I'm trying to think. There were a good many projects, also in Links International Services, where we would expose kids to careers in the international realm. And so I have to say that I find I get a lot of fulfillment out of working with children. When I found that when I became a mother, that I almost love nothing more than pouring myself and everything that I have and everything that I know and all the love that I have into my children. And I try to do that for the children that I work with. And so I feel very fortunate to have that, because not only am I giving to them, they're giving a lot to me, and you really are able to see how children grow, how they blossom when you water them the way that they need to be watered, and how they really are our future.
You mentioned an LLC. It's yours?
It is mine,
okay.
Yes.
So you're an entrepreneur.
So I hadn't thought of myself as that, but yes, I was looking for a way to help people who ordinarily wouldn't be helped, and I was looking for a way to do some consulting in family law, and by that I mean I wanted to be able to have people come to the office and me guide them in their family law journey, in their divorce journey, child support journey, and then also not have to always be in a situation that is contentious, because what you'll find as a family law attorney is that there are a good many, and I find especially the newer attorneys, they come out of law school and they're ready for a debate, and they're ready to to get in there and just kind of fight for something, and sometimes overlook the fact that concessions can be made and compromises can be reached without having to have such a contentious type of interaction. And so affordable divorces was also a way. I was trying really hard. I consulted the bar to make sure that consulting was something that I could do, so that that I could help people on their journey with, and try to eliminate some of the contentious nature or the adversarial nature of family law issues.
How is the LLC financed? As individuals come to you, or is it outside sponsorships that underwrite the work that you do?
So I was hoping that I would get to the point where I would be able to get some outside help, but it's just me. It's just me.
One of the things that we tried to discuss when we're in this venue has to do with the dilemmas of African-American entrepreneurship. The young man who produces this for us is an African-American entrepreneur. Many of the people who come through here are entrepreneurs, and there seems to be a uniform dilemma with support from within the African-American community for African-American entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Is that your experience as well?
So I hadn't actually, I hadn't looked, because I had thought of grant writing, writing grants to receive money to help me do, do the work that I was speaking of. I had at least thought about doing something similar to what's done with the Public Defender's Office, to be able to offer services in family law, and have it to be funded by an outside source. But I know what you're talking about, because my brother is definitely a career entrepreneur. He's the owner of a Black-owned business. And I see him, trying to raise funds, find capital to search for companies to purchase. And he was successful. He purchased a company. I think it was a vitamin supplement company, and grew the company. And then the goal was to grow the company and to sell it. But it became so profitable, and he received so much recognition, and especially during COVID, so much interest in people wanting to help. And I say during COVID, but it was during COVID also was a revolutionary time for Black America, in that, we were seeing the shootings of Black men by police. And so a lot of my brother's, former classmates at Wharton, because he went to the University of Pennsylvania, Wharton School, a lot of the majority friends that he had were looking for ways to invest in the Black community. And through that, in a business like his, that was marketing to the Black community to be healthy, to, take supplements, to exercise, to address, issues with diabetes and high blood pressure. So most of my experience in the struggle to have things like that funded, I have witnessed, through the efforts that my brother has put forth.
Your husband is a dentist.
He is.
And so two professional people, have two children. And what are the dilemmas that you have raising African American children in a city like Baton Rouge?
Well,
even though you have access to economy that some people might not have.
Yeah, so I think that, one thing that that definitely my daughter's counterparts in her school don't realize is that that it's tough to be in majority situations and be the only one. And so, that's sort of why we have organizations like Jack and Jill, where kids who, come from parents who have resources can get together, because they're sort of spread out in, all of the schools across the city, and don't have each other to bond with and compare notes with. And so, I have not noticed in my youngest daughter, any internal struggle or any problem related to being the only one. But I still try to talk about it, and to make her aware of it and ask her questions about it, so that we can keep those lines of communication open. Now, my older daughter, who's actually my bonus daughter, my husband was married before he was married to me. And so Tate Elizabeth is 21 years old, and I've known her since she was 2 years old. And recently a cartoon book was published, where, and the name of it, I believe, is My Skin Doesn't Blend In. And so it wasn't until we started to talk about this book that she got, kind of honest with us about how she felt, being in environments where she was one of the few or the only one. And so we're still exploring that. But, her path was to go to an HBCU, a historically Black college and university. She goes to Dillard in New Orleans. And her experience is that, she's happy for the foundation that she had and what she was exposed to, but she's also very happy about being able to attend an HBCU and discover things about herself that she, inadequacies that she thought that she had, self-esteem issues that she hadn't addressed when she was younger, that she realizes that, needed to be addressed at this point in her life.
As a judge, assuming that you're successful in your candidacy, as much as a person who sits on the bench and renders decisions, you're going to be seen in this community even more so than you already are as a mentor and as an advocate for certain causes. If I were to ask you what were your primary causes that you would want to advocate for, what would that include?
So I think that, as I mentioned before, that I will continue to look for causes that benefit children. And there was one other thing I was thinking of. So I probably will continue the work of Judge Lisa Woodruff White with the Self-Help Center. That sort of the Self-Help Center is a program that was put into place in family court for people who couldn't afford, divorce services, and it sort of mirrors what I was already doing with affordable divorces. And so, I worked closely with her in the beginning stages, more so just talking about it and talking about how it could come to be. And so if I'm elected for the Division B seat, I will dedicate myself to keeping that particular program going. I do also think that I will create a program in my division for young women to come into my chambers and to be mentored by me, to be mentored by some of my colleagues who I know could make an impact. And so, I think a lot of my work will be geared toward children, but in particular, young women, and more specifically, probably young Black women.
Having worked and been trained by Judge Laverne, Judge Woodruff White, what do you see as being the primary traits, characteristics, things necessary to make you a successful judge?
So I've had this conversation with Judge Woodruff White because, like I said, she is a mentor, and I admire her greatly. And when we were working together, one of the things that I loved about her was that she was so thoughtful in all of her decision making, and sometimes when she was not sure which way to go, she would go into her office and pray. And so that was one thing that I did not know about her, when I was working with her, but that she shared with me since. And I just, I think that I will take from her her compassion and her thoughtfulness and her commitment to look at each case on an individual basis, and of course apply the law, but to make sure that she's making the best decision for that particular family at that particular time. And it sort of is kind of where my my motto for my campaign was born, fairness for our families, because I want to look at each family and their situation and their children and not just blanketly apply, a 50-50 custody plan if that's not what's right for that particular family. And I kind of would like to end that by saying that in my conversations, impartiality is very important. It's important to try to not to look at who the attorneys are, what outside influences that there might be present, but to look at each family and each situation and try to be as impartial as possible and as fair as possible.
Baton Rouge is a small town.
Yes.
And all you lawyers know each other. A lot of
for the most part, yes.
Again,
yes.
One of the arguments I have with my sister all the time. So when you ascend to the bench, and coming before you are two attorneys that you have had collegiality with.
Correct.
How is it that you're able, and I know there's a certain degree of professionalism that allows you to maintain a distance, but if you're really tight with so-and-so,
right, Yeah.
And the other person is just somebody that you know.
Right.
How do you tamp down the anxiety that one might have that you're rendering a decision based upon relationship and not necessarily based upon fairness? Because nobody's going to always, if you don't rule in their favor, they're never going to think that what you did was fair.
Yeah, so, after I left the family court bench, I made friends with the judges up there. Like we did things together. We went out to lunch together. We formed bonds and friendships. And I always say this about Judge Baker, that no matter what decision she makes on my case, I always feel like it's fair. And so, sometimes I'm against somebody who, may not sort of be in our little network of lawyers that sort of came up together. But I admire Judge Baker because I always feel like even if there is another attorney that, I know she spends more time with, that she just really likes, that I always feel like she looks at the case before her and that she's fair. And so I'm going to take that example from her. And I know that we're human, and sometimes, if a friend of yours comes before you and you're like, boy, I really like to help her out, and help her win her case, but it's my job to put those things aside and look at the people, because it's the community that you're here to serve. And, I've had clients who walked away, not in East Baton Rouge Parish, another parish, where they felt like, they're all connected and I'm never going to get a fair chance in this court because of the politics. And so I just don't want anyone to ever walk away feeling like one attorney had an advantage over the other because of a friendship that I might have with one particular attorney. Because I know I've been on the end of it where the client feels like, this is my child that they're making this decision about. This is my life. And I just don't ever want it to be that somebody walks away feeling like they didn't get a fair shake because of a relationship that a judge or an attorney have.
You're running for Division B?
Correct.
Is this a geographic district? And if so, what are the boundaries?
Yeah,
who can vote, I guess is what I'm asking. Yeah,
who can vote. Okay, so of course, I told you that it was, that this district was drawn in, I believe, 1990, so that mostly minority neighborhoods could vote. And so it's mostly minority neighborhoods. It runs along Airline Highway. It includes parts of South Baton Rouge, North Baton Rouge, Park Forest, Eden Park, Zion City, Melrose Place, just a good mixture of Scotlandville, just a good mixture of minority neighborhoods, so that we could, we as African Americans could be represented on the bench.
As you have been campaigning and going door to door, which I'm assuming you're doing,
yes.
What's been the reception of people? Do they know that you're running for family? Did they know that this seat was coming up? Do they have an idea of what it is? Do you have to spend a lot of time educating people as to what it is that you're running for?
You do, yes. So we started out putting out signs, with my face on them, because, I am, I don't have name recognition. I'm not somebody that I think a lot of people in the community may know. And so, we started with signs, and then we do go door to door, and some people were aware that Judge Woodruff White decided to retire. This is a 6-year term that she was reelected for, and she's 1 year into the term. And so there are some people who realize that, read in the paper that a special election is coming up. And so this is a special election, and we try to let them know, this is going to be a vacant seat, and there is no incumbent, and get out and vote. And I know that a lot of people, prefer or are just more inclined to vote in presidential elections or, bigger elections where we're electing congressmen or somebody on the state or national level. But I try to impart upon people the importance of family court and who it affects and how it affects people. And I try to let people know I have a family. I have a blended family. These issues have affected me. I know these issues on a personal and a professional level, and I know a lot of other people know these issues on a personal level, and so I try to connect with people on that because I said, even if you haven't experienced any issues in family court, you know somebody who has. And so I just try to impart upon people that it's really important for you to get out and vote in this special election to make sure that families who are separating, who are transitioning their dynamic are taken care of.
And your election is on the October ballot?
It is on the October ballot. The election day is October 9th. Early voting is September 25th through October 2nd. We encourage people to get out and vote early if they can. And that's it.
I really appreciate your taking the time to come by and share with us today, and I hope that you have great success in your pursuit of this office.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for viewing. Thank you for listening. We'll be back again next time.